Hello guys, hello grade 11 and grade 12. Welcome to Academic World by Mpatala TL. I want us to go and look at question 5 of May-June 2019. I think it's a DBE exam. So I'm going to share the screen right now and then we look at this question of May-June 2019. Let's look at this question of May, June 2019, paper 1. It's a simple topic of hyperbola function. Okay? So I normally prefer to start with simple stuff and then we accelerate to higher complex questions. So let us look at question 5. We are given f of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. This is a hyperbola function, guys. We are given a hyperbola function. F of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. Let's check what the examiner wants from us. So the first question says determine the equation of the asymptotes of f. I think I'm treating this kind of question several times. If you're following me, you'll realize that it's been a while finding the equation of the asymptotes of f. So since f is a hyperbola function, it has got two asymptotes. We have to recall that it has got two asymptotes. It has got the vertical asymptote, and it also has the horizontal asymptote. When I'm talking about the vertical asymptote, I'm talking about the x asymptote, the asymptote that will cut the x-axis. And what is our vertical asymptote in this case? The asymptote of x. How do we find the asymptote of x? It's very simple. Go to your equation of f of x and equate your denominator to 0. So you're going to say x plus 2 equals to 0. Therefore, x equals to -2. So this is one of the equation of the asymptote, which is x equals to -2, the vertical asymptote. You need to recall how it appears on the graph. How does the vertical asymptote appear on the graph? We'll be having -1, -2. So it will be like this. It's a dotted vertical line. So how do we find the horizontal asymptote? The horizontal asymptote, I'm referring to the asymptote of y. This number at the end here, this plus 3, it is the y asymptote. And what is the value of the y asymptote? Y equals to 3. So I've got two equations of the asymptote. X equals to -2, y equals to 3. So in your exam, in your answer sheet, you write, you say x equals to -2, the asymptote of x, and you say y equals to 3, the asymptote of y. We are going to bless you with 2 marks if you do this. 1, 2. So we wanted the equation of the asymptote of f, which is a hyperbola function, which has got two asymptotes. The vertical asymptote, which is the x asymptote, the horizontal asymptote, which is the y asymptote. So it was easy to find the asymptote. Okay, the y asymptote was actually the easiest. This number at the end here, this 3, it is the y asymptote. That is why I'm saying y equals to 3. How do I find the x asymptote? Very, very, very important. Equate your denominator to 0. So your denominator, it's x plus 2. So you just say x plus 2 equals to 0. You find x equals to -2. So it's easy to find the equations of the asymptote. Okay, now they are saying write down the y-intercept of f. So the function f, let me raise this other part. The function f is having the y-intercept. So we know that this graph, let's say we have got the y-axis and the x-axis. This graph of hyperbola will pass or will cut the y-axis. So I will just say, suppose the graph is like this. I'm not saying this is the real graph. Suppose the graph is like this. Maybe we have the asymptotes. Suppose the graph is like this. We see that the graph is cutting the y-axis at this point. Let me specify it with a red color. Yes, the graph passed the y-axis at that point. And that point, which is the y-cut of the graph, it is our y-intercept. So this guy is looking for, the examiner here wants to know the y-intercept. He wants to know the y-cut of the graph. On which value of y will the graph pass at the y-axis? So now you recall that at any point on the y-axis or on the y-cut of the graph, the x-coordinate, it is very zero. I mean, it is always zero. So if we were to call this point A, where the graph cuts the y-axis, we say, okay, at that point, the x-coordinate, it is zero. So we will have to calculate the coordinate of y. So please recall this, at the y-intercept, the x-coordinate, it is always zero. So we're gonna go to our equation of f of x, where we see x, we put zero because we are looking for the y-intercept. So let's do that without waste of time. Let us calculate the y-intercept, meaning we are looking for the value of y when x, it is zero. That is the y-intercept. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to write down the equation of f of x. What is the equation of f of x? F of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. So you say y-intercept. You are looking for the y-intercept. You say y-intercept, let x be 0. So I'm going to say f of into 0. So this simply says in the function f, I'm substituting x with 0. F of 0 equals to 1 over, where there is x, you put 0. So you say 0 plus 2 plus 3. So therefore, f of 0, you now press your calculator. 1 over 0 plus 2 plus 3, it's 3,5. I believe it's 7 over 2. If I make a mistake, bear with me. I'm not using a calculator, but actually this one is 7 over 2. No way. It is 7 over 2. It is f into 0. Sorry, it is f into 0 equals to 7 over 2. So the y-intercept is 7 over 2. How many marks? 1 mark. So they say it's easy. You just substitute 0 there. You find your y-intercept. We give you a mark. Now they are saying, calculate the x-intercept on 5.1.3. Calculate the x-intercept. I love the way this examiner brings the questions, the way he's asking, because why am I saying this? On the first question, the examiner said, give us the asymptote. On the second question, the examiner said, give us the y-intercept. And on the third question, the examiner says, give us the x-intercept. And we know that both these three things, we need those three when we want to sketch the graph of hyperbola. If you want to sketch the graph of hyperbola, you must have the asymptotes, you must have the y-intercept, You must have the x-intercept, and then you will be able to sketch the graph. So I love the way the examiner is bringing the questions here. So let us deal with question 5.3, which is calculate the x-intercept of f. What is the x-intercept? The x-cut of the graph. So we believe that if we have the y-axis and also have the x-axis, we believe that our graph, the function f, somewhere cut the x-axis. So in this case, let me just say something like this. I'm not saying it's the true picture of that function, this one. So now you see that at the x cut of the graph, when the graph cuts the x-axis, this is called the x-intercept, the x cut of the graph. Now, which is a point on the x-axis. If you look at the x-intercept, it is seated on the x-axis because it's where the graph cuts the x-axis. And we are saying at any point on the x-axis, the value of y, it is 0. So we know that when we are looking for the x-intercept, we will have to let y to be 0. Simple stuff. We let y to be 0. So I'm going to go to the equation of f. Where I see y, I'm now going to substitute y. My y is f of x there. So I'm going to substitute my y with 0. So let's go for it. So I'm going to say, okay, f of x, which is my y, I'm letting it to be 0. Let me say x-intercept. Let y be 0. F of x is our y. Let y be 0. So you're going to say, okay, at f of x, I'm putting 0. 0 equals to my equal sign, okay, 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. So you can tell that when we are looking for the x-intercept, we are looking for the value of x, where y is 0. So we have to compute, we have to calculate the value of x. So how do we calculate the value of x? One strategical idea here, that what you can do, you can take positive 3, you can transpose it, you can take it to the left-hand side, which becomes minus 3 equals to 1 over x plus 2. Today, I'm interested in simplicity. So how do we solve for x there? We just do cross multiply. I'm going for the simple maths. You just cross multiply. Underneath negative 3, there is invisible 1. So you say x plus 2 times negative 3. And be careful, when 2 terms multiply 1 term, that 1 term needs to multiply both those 2 terms. So we're going to have something like negative 3 being multiplied with x plus 2 equals to 1 times 1, it is 1. Now you apply distributive law. Negative 3 multiply everything inside the bracket. So we're going to have negative 3x, negative 3 times 2, negative 6 equals to negative 1. So it's negative 3x minus 6 equals to minus 1. We have to group like terms. Let us group like terms together. So we're going to have minus 3x equals to, take minus 6 to the other side, which is going to be minus 1 plus 6. And minus 1 plus 6, it is 5. So we're going to have 5 on the right-hand side. So what do you do to find x? Divide both sides by negative 3. The value of x, therefore, is minus 5 over 3. What is minus 5 over 3 in a decimal form? It's negative 0, comma, I'm not having a calculator, so I know that I have to find how many, I have to spot how many times 3 goes into 50. Wow, how many times? 3 into 50. I have 50. I know that 3 goes into 45 15 times. So it's going to go 16 times. So minus 0, 3 into 50 goes 16 times. Okay, minus 0, 0.16. Then how much is left if it's going 16 times? I think we are left with 2. And then now into 2, 3 will go recurring times. How many times does it go 3 into 20? It goes around 6. So it's 6, 0.1666, negative 0.1666. Just bear with me, press it on your calculator. Just say x equals to minus 5 over 3 and confirm, check your solution. So we have got the asymptote. We found the y-intercept. Now we found the x-intercept. What was the y-intercept? It was 7 over 2. What is the x-intercept? Minus 0.1666 recurring. But before you write it in a decimal form, I prefer that you write it in a fraction form, then you write it in a decimal form. Now 5.1.4 say, sketch the graph of f. This question makes sense because you have everything that you need to sketch the hyperbola graph. For you to sketch a hyperbola graph, you must have the asymptote of the hyperbola graph. You must have the y-intercept of the hyperbola graph. You should be also having the x-intercept of hyperbola graph. Then it should be very easy in such case to sketch your hyperbola graph. Let's go for it. Let's go for 5.1.4. I'm enjoying this. So now we're going to say, okay, we are sketching the hyperbola graph. We should have the y-axis. We should have the x-axis. The good thing that in the exam, they will give you a Cartesian plane where you are going to draw your graph. Now, I will say my x-intercept is negative 2. So I know I have to have negative 1, negative 2. The graph will pass here at negative 2. It will cut the x-axis at negative 2. This is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. So what is my y-intercept? 3. So I have to have 1, 2, 3. It will cut the y-axis here at 3. Okay, now, I'm lying. Ooh, I'm using the asymptote as my intercept. This is wrong. Sorry, guys. Minus 2 and 3, they are the asymptote. They are not the x-intercept. Wow. Sorry for that. Y-axis, x-axis, minus 1, minus 2. Actually, minus 2 is not the x-intercept. It is the x-asymptote. So you have to show it with a dotted vertical line. You still remember I said the x-asymptote it's a vertical line. It has to cut the x-axis. The x-asymptote has to cut your x-axis. It has to pass your x-axis. The y-asymptote is 3. 1, 2, 3. The y-asymptote is here. 3. Okay, now I have to show the intercept. The x-intercept is 7 over 2, which is 3,5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 3,5 is between 3 and 4. This is my x-intercept. My y-intercept is negative 0,166. So let me say I have 0 here, negative 1 here. I know it has to be somewhere here. Not actually between, because it's 0,166 up, it's a small figure. So now it's going to go like this. Your graph is going to go like this. Cut the y-axis, approach the asymptote. It will never touch the asymptote. Your graph will never touch your asymptote. Now from cutting the x-axis, it will go and approach the x-axis. It's not a neat graph. it has to be something like this. That's the shape of this graph that we are having. So when you sketch the hyperbola graph, show us the asymptote and show us those intercepts. Question 5 of May, June 2019, paper 1, it was a giveaway. Here you were just, whoever wrote this May, June 2019, paper 1 was just supposed to collect how many marks? This 8 marks. And this actually happens in your final exam, guys. Examiners sometimes they can't be that cruel. Some questions, it's a giveaway. It's meant for you to pass. So hopefully you found this topic of sketching the hyperbola graph to be simple, where you find the asymptote, the y-intercept, the x-intercept, and you sketch the graph. I'm hoping I'm very helpful to you. Now, before we wrap up our lesson, I want to make it interesting and I want you to pay attention. In the exam room, you look at this equation, f of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. Look at that equation. F of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. Once you find the hyperbola function in the equation of that form, just know that this should be a giveaway question, because they easily identified the equation of a function. But I can trick you in the exam as an examiner. What I can do, let's say I give you this kind of equation. Look, let's say I say to you, y minus 3 x plus 2 equals to 1. Watch out. Watch out. This can be very cruel to many grade 12 and grade 11 learners. Let me say I give you something like this. Y minus 3 in brackets, x plus 2 in brackets, and say equals to 1, and ask you the same question which I asked you on 5.1.1. I say to you, determine the equation of the asymptote of f. Suppose I say, determine the equation of the asymptote of f. I don't give you this f of x equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. Instead of giving you this one, I give you something like this. And I say, determine the equation of the asymptote of f. Now, once you realize that this is a topic of functions, once you realize that we are dealing with functions, in functions, make sure that your y is always the subject of the formula. Before you do anything else, make sure that the variable y is the subject of the formula. When we are working with functions, we want y to be the subject of the formula. So let's make y the subject of the formula there. So you're going to say, okay, 1 minus 3 in brackets, x plus 2 in brackets equals to 1. What you do, you're going to first divide both sides by x plus 2. You want to reach the point where y is the sum of the formula. So you divide both sides by x plus 2. Now we know x plus 2 somehow cancel x plus 2. We are left with y minus 3 equals to 1 over x plus 2. Now you know what you have to do now. Last step, take negative 3 to the other side, which is y equals to 1 over x plus 2 plus 3. Yep. You see, this is this. So be careful of examiners. Sometimes they can give you the function f in I'll just say in a format which appears to be foreign. It's not something you are used to. So what you do, make y the subject of the formula. Now, once you make y the subject of the formula, it becomes a familiar question. It becomes something you have been working with throughout your year. So now it will be easy to work with. Thank you so much for visiting Academic World by Mpakela TL. We love maths. Guys, make sure that you are getting those A's. Do put all your effort. Do your level best. God bless you, and make sure that you go all out. Kill the maths. Kill the maths. Thank you so much. Let me end my meeting. I'm ending